Now I want to talk about the three big reasons that have led to the D-backs' phenomenal record in 2023. Because look, entering the season, I was bullish on this D-backs team. I was like, a successful D-back season. You finish with around a 500 record. I need at least 80 wins from this team, and they've done more than that on the current pace they're on. They're expected to be in the low to mid 90s, and I would have never expected that coming into the season. Now we got to kind of recalibrate our expectations with this D-backs team and question ourselves as to whether is this team a true World Series contender. How aggressive should we be at the deadline? Who should we go out there and target? And those are all fun questions to have when your team is this competitive, been this good throughout the regular season. But how did we get to this point? How did the D-backs go from a mid 70 wins team last year to potentially adding 20 wins on last year's record, leading the NL West at, past the halfway point of the season and just looking like one of the best teams in baseball week after week? What variables, what reasons have led the D-backs to this point? So I've been doing research. I came up with three big reasons as to why the D-backs have been so good this season compared to last year's team. The three big reasons that have led them to take this leap in terms of win-loss record. You guys may agree, you guys may disagree, but these are the three reasons that I think have led to the D-backs, greatest season in a while, because it's been a while since we've seen some really good D-backs baseball like what we're watching right now. So let me get into my first reason. Reason number one why I think the D-backs have improved so much from last year is team speed. I think it's arguable, of course, with other teams like the Pirates, but this D-backs team does so good at manufacturing runs, getting runners on board, sending those runners home. Like nobody in baseball, in my opinion, does more with their team speed in terms of creating chaos on the bases or even just tracking down fly balls in the outfield. I think the D-backs are the best team in utilizing their team speed because of so many different areas that they use their speed in. The D-backs are first in Major League Baseball in extra base taken percentage. That's like whenever there's a fly out to right field, maybe a guy got in first base and he goes and tags up and goes to second. That's an extra base taken. D-backs second in Major League Baseball in stolen base percentage. When this team takes off, they're more than likely to take the base that they're after. Then this team is third in run scoring percentage. So when the D-backs have a man on second or third, best believe those guys are coming home. It's one of the reasons why the D-backs have the third most runs in the National League and also the third best OPS in the National League. The D-backs all of last season took 162 extra bases. So they basically average one extra base taken per game. So far, I think they've played 85 games this year. They're already up to 104 extra bases. The D-backs are being so much more aggressive on the base pass, and their outfield, they're two all-star outfielders. Lourdes Gurriel leads Major League Baseball in extra bases taken, and Corbin Carroll's fourth. Those guys, when they get on, they're looking to be aggressive. It's not always a stolen base like with Corbin Carroll. Lourdes Gurriel has shown you if there's a pass ball, if there's a sac fly, if there's just, maybe just a fielder's choice to the first baseman. Lourdes Gurriel is just such a smart base runner. He's not a burner. He's not a speedster, but he shows you how a slightly above average runner can turn that, maybe lack of speed into a weapon. So those guys have been dynamite. And of course, the D-backs have other dudes with speed like the Ketel Martes, the Perdomos. Like literally, if you look at sprint speed on StatCast, with the dudes with at least 75 competitive runs this year, Carroll is third in sprint speed this season, so he's considered the third fastest player with at least 75 opportunities. Jake McCarthy's considered the fourth fastest player. Now Thomas is 35th. And 35th might not sound that fast, but guys like Riley Green and guys like, I can't even think off the top of my head. I think I actually have it pulled up here. So yeah, Alec Thomas is sandwiched in between guys like Riley Green and Marcus Semien. He's actually ahead of the Semiens and the Gunnar Hendersons of the world and the Anthony Volpes and the CJ Abrams, guys that we consider quick. Luis Robert, like Alec Thomas has a better sprint speed than all of them. So the D-backs have legit speed on this team. Last year, pre-All-Star break, the D-backs played 92 games. They had 37 stolen bases pre-All-Star break last year in 92 games. In 85 games pre-All-Star break this year, the D-backs have 82 steals. They're almost averaging a steal a game, which is insane. They also have the third fewest outs on the bases. So the team that takes the most extra bases also doesn't create outs on the bases. So when we're talking about chaos, this team can run without the risk. That's why when we've talked about stealing in the past, the last few years, people have talk negatively about stealing because they're like, it's just too risky. I don't want my guy getting thrown out at second or third. I don't want to take away that run scoring opportunity. Well, guess what? No one takes more bases than the D backs. No one, the D backs are one of the best teams at putting those runners on and then bringing them home, and they're not creating outs on the bases. Great job by the D-backs offense to use their team speed as a major weapon. The second big reason, I believe lineup depth is another huge reason. The platoon splits, we know Torey Lovello loves his platooning. And in the past, I haven't been a big fan because the numbers showed you just because you platoon, that doesn't mean you're going to have good success. And the D-backs really didn't have good success in the past when they platoon. Left-handed batters versus right-handed pitchers last year for the D-backs had a 701 OPS, a 701 OPS. Right-handed batters versus left-handed pitchers last year for the D-backs had a 687 OPS. So those guys were bad to mediocre in the situations where they were supposed to thrive. But in 2023, left-handed batters versus right-handed pitchers for the D-backs, 802 OPS, and then right-handed batters versus left-handed pitchers, 792 OPS. So last year, when you had your righty versus lefty or your lefty versus righty, they played at the plate like they were just mediocre pedestrian players, like they didn't have an advantage, like it was a righty versus righty situation. But this year, they're actually taking advantage of those situations. They're actually putting up all-star level numbers when they're getting the correct platoon advantage. And when I talk about depth, the D-backs first two hitters last year averaged a 230 average and a 702 OPS. The 3 through 6 hitters last year had a 243 average and a 742 OPS. This season, the first two hitters for the D-backs, 273 average and a 775 OPS. And then hitters 3 through 6, 269 average, 821 OPS. The 1 through 6 hitters for the D-backs this year are putting up borderline all-star numbers, while last year they looked like a bunch of pedestrian players. There's at least 6 dudes with at least a 800 OPS currently in the D-backs lineup, and that doesn't include guys like Jake McCarthy and Alec Thomas, who have been really good since coming back up. Emmanuel Rivera doesn't include him because even though he's batting 315 or 313, he has like a 750 OPS. Gabriel Moreno has been a really good contact hitter all year. His OPS has dipped a little bit. It's like below 700, but he's still a really good contact machine at the plate. And also Carson Kelly's back. He's no slouch offensively at times. We've seen stretches where he's been really good offensively. Then Dominic Fletcher has been really good for this D-backs team as well. So when you look at the depth on this D-backs team with how many dudes can go up to the plate, put together a quality at bat, not strike out, put the ball in play, and maybe good things can happen. Very strong stuff by the D-backs. This is not a team that strikes out a lot. They have so many just professional hitters in their lineup. I think the lineup depth is a huge reason why this D-backs team has been so good. And then you saw just this past week, Pavin Smith gets sent down, or you call up Kyle Lewis, who has been crushing it in the minors. You still got guys like Dominic Canzone in the minors they could call up at any time. Lineup depth has been super huge for the D-backs this season. And the last reason why I think the D-backs have been so good this year compared to last year is the bullpen is finally decent. If you want a fun fact, the D-backs bullpen ERA this year is actually better than their starting rotation ERA. Last season, the D-backs had the fourth worst bullpen in the National League in terms of ERA. This season, they have the fifth best bullpen in terms of NL ERA. Last year, the D-backs were ranked 25th overall in Major League Baseball in bullpen ERA. This year, they're 16th, and that's all we've asked for. We've said the past, since 2020, we're like, if the D-backs have just a mediocre middle of the pack bullpen, this team could be in the conversation for the playoffs. And then guess what? You see it this year. The D-backs, all of a sudden, literally middle of the pack bullpen, and all of a sudden they're fighting and leading the division. Fantastic stuff from their relievers. The D-backs are still bad in save situations. They actually have a worse ERA and average allowed in save situations this year, but they're a lot better in those non-save situations, which is you're going to have more non-safe situations than safe situations. So the closer role still isn't great for the D-backs, but at least they're better in those 7, 6, 8, 9, even 9th inning situations. It just can't be a save situation where the D-backs are better in this year. When it's your first plate appearance against a reliever from 2022, That reliever gave up a 257 average and a 744 OPS. But your first plate appearance against a reliever by the D-backs in 2023, they're just allowing a 233 average and a 693 OPS. And guess what? If that reliever is getting just 1 day of rest, well, in 2022, that was a 5.22 ERA. That was a 790 OPS. But in 2023, if a D-backs reliever just on 1 day of rest, a 2.61 ERA and a 597 OPS allowed, the D-backs bullpen has finally been middle of the pack, which is something that we've called for so long because it's been so long since the D-backs have had a good bullpen. So I'm very glad to see the D-backs have improved mightily this year. It's been a super fun D-back season. The last couple of years at the halfway point, especially 2021, by the time you get to the All-Star break, I'm already looking ahead to the draft. I'm looking ahead to the offseason. I'm thinking about next year's team. But this year, I get to stay present, stay in the moment, and it's super fun rooting for the best team in the NL West.